Today we will start with the chapter on accounts of holding companies. Let's see what is a holding company. It says holding company is a limited liability company which acquires all or majority of equity shares of any of the limited liability company which is called subsidiary company so as to control any or all of these following, that is composition of board of directors and or voting power. So we say a holding company is any company which has got all or majority of the equity shares of another company so that it can control the composition of the board of directors of that company, that is the subsidiary, and or it can control the voting power. Now, composition of board of directors, if you can control the composition of board of directors if you can appoint them, reappoint them, and so on. So you have the control over the board of directors. Now let's see what is in this definition we have used the word subsidiary. So let's see the opposite of holding, that is subsidiary. The subsidiary company is a company deemed to be subsidiary of the holding if the holding controls composition of board of directors of the subsidiary and or the holding controls voting rights. Now it is the same as voting power or voting rights. And over here, while explaining subsidiary company, the definition is giving you some more details about voting rights. It is quite very possible that you belong to any of these categories. Your company belongs to any of these categories. That is, if you are an existing company having preference shares with voting rights, so there is a category of preference shares which are given voting rights. They can vote just like equity shares. And if you are belonging to that category of existing companies who are having these kind of preference shares where voting rights are given to the preference shareholders, then voting right control would be deemed to be in the hands of the holding if the holding holds more than half of the voting rights power. So it means if you are belonging to this category of the companies that who have issued such kind of preference shares which gives voting rights to the preference shareholders, then you will become a holding if any company will become a holding if that company is able to control voting rights which are greater than half of the total voting power. In other words, over here generally we say voting rights are in the hands of the equity shareholders, but over here this is an exceptional case in which the company has given voting rights to the preference shares also. So if such is the case, then you will be deemed to have control over the voting rights if you have more than half of the total voting power. So this voting power will include the voting rights and voting power given to the preference shareholders also. And if you belong to other companies, that is other companies means which have not issued such kind of preference shares which give voting rights to the preference shareholders. So if you don't have such kind of shares, in that case the simple would be you have That is, the holding has the voting rights, which is nothing but more than half of the share capital. The voting rights which belong to more than half of the share capital. And another third way of having control is that there is a subsidiary of another subsidiary. That is, the example over here shows if H is the holding, we generally use H for holding and S for subsidiary. So if H is a holding which controls, say for example, the composition of board of directors of S1, this means H is a holding and it is a holding of subsidiary 1, or S1 is a subsidiary of H. Now, if in turn S1 is a holding H1, it is a holding of S1A. S1 subsidiary 1 is a subsidiary for H, but it is a holding for S1A. Right? So this is holding for S1A. Then this S1A automatically becomes a subsidiary of H also. Why? Reason because S1A is a subsidiary of S1 and S1 itself is a subsidiary of H. So a subsidiary of a subsidiary is also a subsidiary of the ultimate holding. And similarly, if in turn this is a holding H2 of another subsidiary S1AA, then S1AA is also automatically deemed to be a subsidiary of ultimate holding H. So I hope you understand that how holding is defined, and on the other side of it we have a concept of subsidiary, which is defined with the help of the same concepts, that is composition of the board of directors, and voting rights. Or by using these two, if you have already defined a subsidiary, then it automatically becomes a subsidiary of the ultimate holding. Now, over here in this chapter, we are going to deal with holding companies. And I have already defined what is a holding company as well as what is a subsidiary company. Now the main objective, main aim of the whole chapter is to come up with a consolidated balance sheet. इस पूरे चैप्टर का एक ही टारगेट है, वो है कंसोलिडेटेड बैलेंस शीट बनाना. To create consolidated balance sheet. In the questions which we will be doing, you will be given two balance sheets. One of the holding and one of the subsidiary. And from these two balance sheets, you are supposed to come up with a consolidated balance sheet. And a simple way of understanding is to consolidate. When you consolidate, you're just going to add simply all the items, individual items of subsidiary into the individual items of holding. When you do this, you get a consolidated balance sheet. But while you do this, you are supposed to do certain adjustments. But the main fact remains the same, that when you consolidate two balance sheets, you are going to consolidate individual items of, basically you are going to add individual items of the subsidiary into the balance sheet of the holding. Now when you start doing this, or before you can do that, you have to understand and able to differentiate between these two definitions also. One is called wholly owned and partly owned subsidiary. One is called wholly owned and the second is partly owned subsidiary. Now, let's see the first, that is wholly owned. If the holding H, I would be using the capital H to denote the holding. So H has 100, if H has 100% shares of the subsidiary, it is called wholly owned subsidiary. Or if you want to use the other definition, that is it controls 100%, it has got 100% control over the composition of the board of directors, then it is wholly owned subsidiary. And secondly, it would be partly owned subsidiary if it has only majority and not 100%. Majority would mean greater than 50% of the your shares of the subsidiary. Then it is called partly owned subsidiary. So agar an example if I take, if you have, say, the subsidiary share capital is consisting of 1000 shares of 100 each. So you have a share capital of 1 lakh. And this share capital is now, these shares are divided into, say, the ratio of 700 and 300. One case is this. And second case is it is not divided. The whole 1000 shares is in the hands of a company called H Limited. Then H Limited in case B is called wholly owned subsidiary. If this is of S Limited, then S Limited in B case is called wholly owned subsidiary. And in the second case, in the first case, case A, where you have divided the 1000 shares into two categories, 700 and 300, and H is having only 700 shares, then in the case A, S is not wholly owned but rather partly owned subsidiary. And it automatically means that these 300 shares are not with H but with somebody else. It is with somebody else, and this somebody else we call them as minority. जब मेजॉरिटी शेयर्स एच के पास हुए तो ये जिनके पास 300 शेयर्स हैं उन लोगों को टुगेदर वी आर कॉलिंग एज माइनॉरिटी. इन सबको हम बोलेंगे माइनॉरिटी. दीज अदर्स हु आर होल्डिंग 300 शेयर्स टुगेदर विल बी कॉल्ड एज माइनॉरिटी. एंड उन सबके जितने भी क्लेम्स होंगे, whatever claims they have, maybe in the form of share capital, maybe in the form of reserves and surpluses or whatever, their claims will be called as minority interest. It is the minority interest. We will see these things in details once we go ahead. For the time being, please understand that what is meant by wholly owned and partly owned subsidiary. We will be doing, mostly you will be getting the questions in the exams on partly owned subsidiary, but we will start understanding and consolidating the balance sheet through the concept of wholly owned, because when we say wholly owned, things are more simpler. There are certain kind of assumptions involved, and with the help of those assumptions we will first understand the basics of consolidating, and then we will slowly relax those assumptions and see how the consolidation process changes. Now, before I can start with the next few things or the practical question, you have to be clear about certain concepts. The first is called date of acquisition. Now, date of acquisition is the date on which the relationship of the holding and the subsidiary company comes into existence. यानी कि कब H और कब ये कंपनी होल्डिंग बनी और कब ये कंपनी सब्सिडरी बनी, उस डेट को हम बोल रहे हैं डेट ऑफ एक्विजिशन. वाई डेट ऑफ एक्विजिशन? बिकॉज दिस इज द डेट ऑन विच you acquired whatever, either the control on the composition of the board of directors or on the voting rights. But the point is, you acquired any or both of these on this particular date, and so we will say you created that relationship of the holding and the subsidiary on this date. Secondly, you should be clear about pre-acquisition period. It is the period beginning with the date of beginning of the current accounting year and ending with the date immediately preceding the date of acquisition. So, let me read the definition of post-acquisition period also, and together I'll explain both of them. The post-acquisition period is the period which begins with the date of acquisition of the majority shares of the holding by the holding and ends with the date on which the current accounting year ends. So, if I take an example, let's assume we are here and this is nothing but your date of acquisition. What is date of acquisition? Date of acquisition is the date on which you became the holding, right? Or which on which your relationship of holding and subsidiary company comes into existence. Now, if this is a date of acquisition, whatever date is there, and you have this as beginning of, say, our accounting year is starting from 1st January of, say, 2020, and the accounting year is ending on 31st December 2020, and in between you have the date of acquisition. Then let's read the definition again. It is the period beginning with date of beginning of the current accounting year. Beginning of the current accounting year is 1st January and ending with the date immediately preceding the date of acquisition. The date preceding the date of acquisition. So till this date, one day before this whole period is called pre-acquisition period. Let's see the definition of the post. It is the period beginning with the date of acquisition. It begins with the date of acquisition of majority shares and ends with the date on which current accounting year ends. So the rest of the whole is called post acquisition period. So mainly the whole accounting year is getting divided into pre and post. If I change and tell you that date of acquisition was 1st January itself, then in such example, my pre-acquisition period is nil and the whole period is post-acquisition period. If I change the example and tell you that the date of acquisition is rather 31st December 2020, then the whole period is starting from 1st January till 31st December is pre-acquisition period and there is no post-acquisition period involved. And of course the third case we started with, that is where you are supposed to divide maybe equally or maybe unequally, maybe it is 3 months versus 9 months, maybe 6 months versus 6 months and so on, depending upon where is your date of acquisition falling. So I hope now you can in every question divide the whole period involved in the question into pre-acquisition period and post-acquisition period. The question arises, why do we need to divide it? The answer to that is, when you acquire the control, maybe through the composition of board of directors or voting rights, whatever, whenever you acquire the control, there is a cost involved to it. And you're supposed to compare this cost in the sense that what you paid for it and what you received in return. When you compare these two things, you will be able to understand whether it was a profitable venture or it was a loss-making venture. And in order to do this whole process, you need to understand that whatever you received is inclusive of certain things which are direct and certain things which are indirectly given to you. In the sense, what I mean to say is that you are supposed to divide this whole period into pre and post, and reason being that whatever belongs to the pre-acquisition period, see, if I go back to this date, you became holding on this date. Whatever subsidiary did in this whole period, you were not there. And whatever profits subsidiary earned during this whole period, you were not there. But when you became the holding on the date of acquisition, you have a control over all these profits and reserves which subsidiary created when you were not there. That is in the period of pre-acquisition period. We are going to treat this whole profit and reserves as, we need to treat it as in the nature of capital profits. You need to divide them and treat those belonging to the pre-acquisition period as of capital nature, and those belonging to the post-acquisition period that of revenue nature. यहाँ से आगे आप होल्डिंग बने, इसके आगे आपका पूरा कंट्रोल है सब्सिडरी पे. जो भी आप वोटिंग राइट्स के थ्रू डिसीजंस लोगे, सब्सिडरी उसके अकॉर्डिंगली काम करेगी, और उसके अकॉर्डिंगली काम करने के बाद उस आपको जो भी प्रॉफिट और लॉस होगा वो आपका एक नेचुरल नॉर्मल बिजनेस जैसे आप रन करते हैं और प्रॉफिट और लॉस होता है उसके हिसाब से होगा, इसलिए वो रेवेन्यू नेचर का माना जाएगा. लेकिन जब आप होल्डिंग नहीं थे और सब्सिडरी ने प्रॉफिट्स एंड रिजर्व्स क्रिएट किए, तो you are going to treat that as of capital nature and not of revenue nature, and that will be included in calculation of this profit or loss which I explained. That is, in the process of acquiring the control, what profit or loss you earned or incurred is supposed to include this capital profit in calculation of this. You will be, of course, understanding it in a better way once we go forward. But for the time being, I am just giving you a hint of what comes ahead. So coming back to this division of the dates, I hope this is clear. So you need to divide the whole accounting period into, maybe you have to divide, it is not always the case, but maybe you have to divide the whole accounting period into the pre-acquisition period and the post-acquisition period. Now let's see the further definitions. It says the pre-acquisition profit and reserves are those profits and reserves which are created and earned or created in the pre-acquisition period. They are undistributed portion of profits earned and reserves created up to the date immediately preceding the date of acquisition of majority of the shares of a holding. That is, whatever profits you have earned and reserves created in this period is called pre-acquisition profits and reserves, and those which you earned, those profits you earned and the reserves you created in this period, that is the post-acquisition period, is called post-acquisition profits and reserves. The post-acquisition profits and reserves are undistributed portion. Why undistributed? If you have already distributed, it has already gone into the hands of whom you have distributed to. So it has to be undistributed, that is getting reflected in the balance sheet. Are undistributed portion of profits earned and reserves created on or after the date of acquisition. Let's see how do you calculate the holdings share. The share of the holding in the whole capital is the number of shares held by the holding divided by the total number of shares of the subsidiary into 100. So this is the share of the holding in the share capital of the subsidiary. We are calculating this percentage with the help of the subsidiary's capital. But out of that, we are coming up with the holdings share. And similarly, the rest, if it is obviously the case of partly owned subsidiary, the rest goes to the minority, and we call that as share of the minority, MS, which refers to the outside shareholders, that is shareholders other than the holding company and its other subsidiaries. Holding the shares in the subsidiary, so refers to the outside shareholders holding shares in the subsidiary, which is calculated as equal to number of shares held by the minority divided by the total number of shares of the subsidiary into 100. So if I take that example, 700 upon 1000 would be the case over here, that is 70% comes to the holding, and minority's share would be calculated as 300 by 1000 into 100, that is 30%. You can also calculate it as 1 minus the share of the holding. So this is 1 minus 0.7, that is 0.3. Let's quickly do a question which tells you how to find out the basics. Equity share capital of A Limited on 31st March 2018 is 5 lakhs divided into 50,000 shares of 10 each. B Limited acquired 25,000 shares on 1st April 2018 and 5,000 shares on 1/7/18. Accounting year of A and B Limited ends on 31st March every year. Identify all the concepts which we have just now done. So the very first is the date of acquisition. What is the date of acquisition? Is the date of acquisition 1/4/18? On 1/4/18, B acquired 25,000, which is only 50%, exact 50%, but you need to have more than 50% to become a holding. So on 1/4/18, B Limited could not become the holding. It will become holding only when it was able to get another 5,000 shares. And on what date it got the 5,000 shares? It got the 5,000 shares on 1/7/18. So over here in the question, the date of acquisition is not 1/4/18 but rather 1/7/18, on which date more than 50%, it is not to be equal, it is to be more than 50% of the face value of the shares of the A Limited were in the hands of B Limited. The second is, what is the pre-acquisition period? The pre-acquisition period starts from start of the accounting year. The start of the accounting year is 1/4/18 and goes till the date of acquisition. So one day before 36/18. So it is consisting of 3 months. So 3 months period is the pre-acquisition period. The post-acquisition period is belonging from 1/7/18 to the end of the accounting year, that is 31st March 2019, and it is 9 months. The pre-acquisition profits are all those profits which the subsidiary has earned or created till 30th June 2018. So whatever profits and losses are given in the balance sheet, you will proportionately take that. से अगर आपको P&L का बैलेंस दिया होता बैलेंस शीट में 10,000 है, सो उस 10,000 को आप डिवाइड अप करोगे किस में, 3:9 पोर्शन में. 3 is belonging to the category of pre-acquisition profits and 9 is belonging to the post-acquisition profits. So 10,000 into 3/12 will belong to pre-acquisition era, and this is going to belong to the post-acquisition period. So post-acquisition profits are the profits and reserves from 1/7/18 to 31/3/19. The holding share is 30,000. Why 30,000? Because it is 25,000 plus 5,000. So 30,000 is the total number of shares held by the holding on 1/7/18 when it became holding. So 30 upon 50 into 100 is 60%, and the share of minority is 20 upon 50 into 100, that is 40%, or 1 minus 0.6, 0.4, that is 40%. So I hope with this it is clear, the basics are clear, and we will now start with the question in the next video. If you have any doubts, you can just pin me the messages in the YouTube itself, and I'll just come up with the answers. Thanks.